Kuehn, and I just want to let you know this is the tip of the iceberg as far as the data to show you the scope of engineering technology education, the engineering technology workforce. So I encourage you to look at the report, which has much more. First, I want to talk a little bit about the limitations of the data, just in identifying engineering technicians and technologists. As Catherine alluded to, the definition of engineering technicians isn't clear for the most part, and this filters into the federal data that's available. Many employers responding to our surveys aren't sure exactly what the differences between technicians and technologists are. And federal data sources generally combine them. There's not a separate occupational category for the two. So when I identify technologists, it's individuals who are identified in the data as being technicians by occupation but have a four-year degree, and technicians are those with an associate's degree or certificates. So we're really combining information on both education and occupation reported in these federal data sets to identify these workforces. The report does rely on a number of different data sets. This isn't even a complete list. And one of the things you'll notice if you look at the data sets that we have, the American Community Survey, Current Population Survey are some major data sources that are frequently used in workforce research. Few of them have data on both employment and education, detailed background data. And so we have this disconnect where we can say a lot about the production of new engineering technology degrees or the number of working engineering technicians and technologists, but we don't have both sets of information for the same people. The exception is for bachelor's degree holders. The National Science Foundation and a few other sources produce strong data sets on bachelor's degree holders, but most technicians and technologists fall under the technician category and only have a two-year degree, so that leaves a lot off. So just to give you a sense of how many technicians and technologists are currently working, the stock of engineering technology bachelor's degrees is about 450,000 with bachelor's degrees in ET, but we only find about 60 to 80,000 that are reported as employed as engineering technologists. Part of this is because they're employed as engineers. They get classified as engineers, or they've moved on to management jobs. There's a number of reasons, but it's much lower. As I noted earlier, since we don't have a lot of the educational data in the workforce surveys, we don't have an estimate of the stock of engineering technology associate's degrees, but it's going to be much higher than the 450,000 bachelor's degrees. We do have much better data from the Department of Education on flows of these degrees. So in 2014, approximately 18,000 engineering technology bachelor's degrees were awarded, and 37,500 associate's degrees were awarded. So these just show you some trends over time in the degree awards. The black line is engineering technology certificates. The dark gray line is associate's degrees, and the dashed line is bachelor's degrees. So the real story here that I think, even when we make the technician technology distinction that's missed, is the strong recent growth in certificates in engineering for engineering technicians. And so that's really an important part of this workforce, and since 2008, 2009, more certificates have been produced than associate's degrees. So while we're focusing on degrees, we can't lose sight of that element of the workforce. I want to give you a quick overview of some of the characteristics of engineering technology graduates. And these remarks basically hold true for bachelor's degrees and two-year degrees. There's actually approximately the same share of people of color between engineering technology degrees and engineering degrees, but much higher representation of African Americans among engineering technology degrees, and a lower share of Asians, and then a much lower share is studying on student visas. Part of this is because there's so many two-year degrees. There are fewer females in engineering technology compared to engineering. So this is the educational attainment levels of people that are identified as working as engineering technicians or technologists in the data over time, going back to 1971. And what you see here is just the increasing importance of the associate degree in the workforce. The black line are individuals with just a high school degree. That's actually still about 30% of the workforce is identified in the data, but it's declined significantly And now the most common group is the dark gray line, which are associate's degree holders. All right, and this is the age distribution over time for the engineering technology workforce, and I'll explain this a little. It's the distribution with age on the horizontal axis, and each line is a different decade period. So on the far left, the orange line is 1974 to 1983, and all the way over on the right, the dashed line is 2004 to 2015, the most recent decade of data. And so you'll see that over time, the workforce, the engineering technology workforce has aged, something we see in engineering in a lot of STEM workforces. And this is also true of the engineering technology workforce. And this leads to questions naturally of shortages. When people hear about aging workforces, they think of shortages. And we dedicate some time to discussing this in the report. So should we worry about shortages? And it's not really as clear a question as you might hope. Just as people have different understandings of what an engineering technician is, they have different understandings of shortages. Employers are often thinking of simply hiring difficulties. Economists are more directly concerned with dysfunctions in the labor market, and those aren't always the same thing. Research has shown that aging workforces don't necessarily imply that there are shortages. Frequently, it's just a symptom of shrinking workforces. If hiring is cut because workforces are shrinking, it'll naturally age over time. But in our employer survey, employers were split about 50-50 on whether the production of engineering technology degrees was adequate. It's important to remember that shortages may be local or temporary. There might not be a global shortage, but in certain regions of the country, in certain fields, it could come up. But our analysis, another analysis of similar STEM workforces, has shown that these workers are responsive to price changes, so any shortages that do emerge typically dissipate. And the point I'll end on is that the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which projects employment growth, has predicted weak employment growth in most engineering technology occupations, which doesn't suggest impending shortage concerns. All right, so I'll turn it over to Ron.